when I have the time, which is lately is not so much. Jesse, good morning. Hit that like button, or as Adam Meister would say, pound that like button, baby. Like, share, and subscribe. Good morning to you and to everybody who is going to be joining with us now. Let me just see. I'm working on the other streams to make sure everything's... Oh, it's finally working. So I got to tell you, this Rumble encoder has been not the greatest. It's failed quite a little bit. We use it for Not on Record, and now for the past 3 weeks, we haven't been able to simulcast on Not on Record, which we're going to talk a little bit about later on in this episode. So good morning to all of you. Welcome to the Freedom Coffee live stream, where we celebrate the freedoms that we have and that we fought for. And we work on different ideas and strategies to expand our freedoms in the future. And we do that with a little bit of positivity and a little bit of coffee. So if you'll join me, I hope you have your coffee or your tea or whatever with you. But this is where we this is our good space. Jessie knows she's probably with Rocky. Rocky is a bird. And anyways, please like, share, subscribe. Let's get into it. I got a little bit of limited time today, and it's really hot, running from the shower to here. So if I look like I'm in the sweats, no, I'm not nervous. That's just the shower. By the way, if you haven't watched the latest Not on Record, check it out. That was from last week. We'll talk a little bit about that in a bit. And Sunday's Not on Record will be actually about artificial intelligence in the courtroom. Quite interesting what's going on. This is funny. Dr. David Elley, I don't know if you saw his post. He shared one of Elon Musk's quotes. I get the impression they might know each other, but he posted a picture from Elon Musk at the Twitter headquarters, which was the thumbnail for this show. That's right. Twitter has left San Francisco, as well as many other businesses. And another indicator of get woke, go broke. And remember, there was the X sign that the city of San Francisco was giving him a hard time, and permit violations and all that sort of stuff. So he replaced that sign, if you haven't seen the thumbnail, with a massive GFY, which is go F yourself, on the roof of Twitter in a big pink neon sign. Epic troll. So well done, Mr. Musk. He did miss an opportunity, as I posted, of a SpaceX rocket flying off into the distance at the time of the photograph. If it was Trump, that's what Trump would have done. But still, well done, points earned, excellent work. Start something a little bit positive. This is from Science News. I know we all love science. Science News, according to Science News, a study or a corroborated study has found a long-sought electrical field in Earth's atmosphere. Now, you might think, why is that important? Well, anytime you have a scientific theory and people think about and contemplate ideas for generations, and then it's finally proven, yeah, that's significant in the scientific community. And we see a lot of that. We see some of that in astronomy. But it says the finding could be a key component to life on Earth. And my first reaction when I heard that was the Miller-Urey experiment, something I learned about many, many years ago. You know what Miller-Urey is? If you don't know, it was a chemical synthesis experiment from 1952, and it proved the synthesis of organic compounds from inorganic compounds. I believe, and I didn't triple check here. I should have, but I believe it was, if memory serves, it was amino acids, hydrogen and water and something else. And basically the combination of those things and electrolysis, which we see in the universe. And that's another story. But that results in organic compounds, which I believe were amino acids. So that is very significant that they've discovered. Anyways, the article reads, scientists have measured a long-sought global electrical field in the Earth's atmosphere. The field, called the ambipolar electrical field, was predicted to exist decades ago, but never detected until now. It goes on to say, that's the big whoop. I don't know if that's a scientific term. Says astrophysics scientist Glenn Collison of NASA, the NASA Goddard Space Flight Center in Greenbelt. Is that Maryland? It looks like it's Maryland. It's a whole freaking new planetary energy field that's never been measured before, strong enough to control and shape evolution. It's fundamental to the DNA on our planet. So, I don't know. I find that very cool and very positive. I'm trying to give some positive things while we'll talk about a little bit of friction in a little bit. All right. Something else that happened is, so I've done, how she described it. One second. I've done what I would call a deep dive into AI over the past month, AI that I've been using for a year now. And I should have done an AI of Rocky for Jesse. She'd probably appreciate that. But anyways, there is a platform where we basically seem to cross the Rubicon in terms of digital image generation. And that's with this platform called Flux AI. And they produced this picture with an AI prompt, just by words and text and all that sort of stuff. And it really is something you can't get beyond that. You can't. And somebody's messaging me, when are you going to talk about Tucker Carlson? We'll talk about that in a second. But anyways, this AI, don't worry, we'll get there. I promise, we'll get there. We don't talk too much about him, just kind of the ancillary things. But the idea is, this was the first image that you really could not tell it was artificially generated. You know, I presume, because I saw people trying to dissect it and stuff, I presume you could put it into Photoshop and do hypermagnification and try to find generative lines where but I don't know. From what I saw, and it seems to be the general consensus, this is very, very significant. And I know a lot of people probably here watching are not fans of AI. I don't fear AI. I find it absolutely fascinating. I think it's going to change the world for the better. I think there's going to be a lot of disruption in the workforce, obviously, as it moves us towards, hyper optimization and efficiency. Well, that's the promise. I think what it's really going to do is it's going to make things take way longer and require teams that administer AI, but the quality of work that will result from it will be significantly better. That's at least been my experience. That's what I've seen. And so don't fear the unknown. And AI is inevitable. It really is. And so might as well figure out a way to use AI to improve our lives, as opposed to just crossing our arms and trying to reject it and trying to do our best to do our impression of Luddites and say, no, we don't want this. No, just figure out a way to incorporate it in a way that it benefits us all. So that's my my suggestion. Okay, Jesse, I will see what I can do. I will put that on my very, very, very long to-do list, but I will put it up higher on the to-do list just for you, I promise. All right. My latest Substack that some of you have read, if you haven't read it, bjdichter.substack.com is where all my articles are. They're also often posted in the National Telegraph as well, and a couple other small publications are starting to pick them up, which is very encouraging. And the last two articles on my Substack were actually posted on Zero Hedge. If you don't know what Zero Hedge is, It is a very, very big and culturally significant platform. It's finance, macroeconomics, a little bit of what's happening in government, but it came out of the finance world after the GFC, when everybody was lying. As this is what was explained to me, and when I know of it, when everybody was lying about what was going on during the GFC, it was a number of insiders that really exposed what was going on. So a lot of the, let's say, skepticism that you might have about the GFC, the global financial crisis in 2008, a lot of that information and contact that came out of Substack. That's where it was generated. Yes, I have a curl in my hair. No, it's not a Clark Kent impression, but the light. That's a long story. Anyways, but thank you. So the last article that was from my Substack that was featured in Zero Hedge, and by the way, I do have another one in the works that's going to be coming up hopefully tomorrow, bjdichter.substack.com. But the name of this article was From Tucker Carlson to Tenet Media, How Conservatism Has Lost the Counterculture Status, or lost its counterculture status. Now, I was expecting people to be angry. I really was. And surprisingly, some were. That's always the case. But I got a lot of support and private messages and people sending words of encouragement that this is great for reasons A, B, C, or D. But there were a couple of people that got upset, and obviously, what do? They lash out. Remember the 7 signs of cognitive dissonance? When you tell somebody they don't want to hear, because we live in the confirmation bias age, we can all just go on the internet and find people that reinforce our opinions that have, Scott says they're all assigned to us, and I'm starting to come on board with that, to be entirely honest. But anyways, the 7 signs of cognitive dissonance, change topic, ad hominem, mind reading, word salad. That's what, I often say that's what Justin Trudeau uses and Creep Wilson used when he helped sabotage the convoy. Analogy instead of reason, too complicated to explain, and the so you're saying straw man. And that was very evident in that encounter with Jordan Peterson and Kathy Newman on that Channel 4 program. Everything she would respond to is, oh, so what you're saying, and she would just build a straw man and say the opposite of what he was trying to say. And well, that's what happened with the few people that would attack me when I posted this article about Tucker Carlson and that Führer guy, whatever his name is, and the historian, the historian resurrecting the same conspiracy crap from the 1980s and 90s when people were trying to resurrect the Third Reich. It's crazy. Doesn't everybody remember that? Does everybody remember in the 80s and 90s, people were trying to do this, trying to peddle this bullshit the same way as they're doing it now? Like, I don't know, have people forgotten? I guess they have. But anyways, I think what's important is, people, the people who reached out to me understood why, but the people who get angry, usually they're the political partisans. They do the political team play. Oh, I'm in team blue or team red or team orange or team purple or team whatever. But the reason it's important is we need to challenge people on our own side. And, maybe you do it a little bit less publicly sometimes, and you start to, you get into conversations. You see that, well, you saw that in Twitter Spaces, although I think Twitter Spaces is dying, and that's going to be a thing of the past very soon. But you would see that where people would come together who are on similar sides of an issue, but they would, debate, nuance on their side. And the reason that's important is because of this phenomenon of brainwashing. It's funny. People don't. I guess people don't seem to see this, or a lot of people just maybe don't consider it and don't think about it. But the brainwashing doesn't come from the opposition. Justin Trudeau is not brainwashing you who are watching this. That's not how it works. The brainwashing, it comes from your own team. They're the ones who brainwash you. The people who you trust. The people you hold up as the pillars is, oh, I'm going to watch this guy every night because he regurgitates my opinions back to me. That's the game. Audience capture. They're just telling you what you want to hear. And now you buy into their frame, and then we get brainwashed. That's why it's important to call out bad ideas on your side of the fence. Because you know what you call brainwashing that doesn't work, that's from the opposition? We have a word from brainwashing for the opposition. You've used it before, I'm sure. It's called propaganda. That's right. When you disagree with it, you label it as propaganda. When you're being brainwashed, you just absorb it into your stack of ideas that confirm your own biases, and that's it. And that's why we need to push against this for a reason. Because, and this is also why I always get, I don't toe the line, like I don't toe the political line, and I don't lie to people for this reason. And it's not because I'm special, because there are other people who are the same way. It's because the silos that the brainwashing puts people into, left or right or whatever, that's what's destroying society. You hear people saying all the time, oh, we're so divided because Donald Trump or whatever this person or Keir Starmer, we're so divided. The reason we're divided is because we're not talking to each other. We're not talking to our families who disagree with us. We're not talking to our neighbors about, cultural issues like my parents and previous generations would too. We're siloing ourselves, and we're going on the internet, which is the world's greatest confirmation bias machine, and we're searching out people that can reaffirm our own opinions. And then what's really interesting is when you get enough people in the same room with the same opinion over a long period of time, you know what happens? They then become radicalized. And that's how you get the kind of pseudo Third Reich people that Tucker Carlson just interviewed. That's how they form an audience. Because the silo gets more extreme over time. And you know who this benefits? This benefits the political class. Because then they can identify, this is what voter IDs are, you identify the different groups and you can leverage them against one another. And then even furthermore, you can use those identity groups to go and sabotage legitimate grievances and grassroots movements. So this is why when somebody is, let's say, antithetical or pushes back against everybody should have the same opinion based on identity politics, you know what they say in political circles? You know what they call you? They say, oh, he's not a team player. That means he's not corrupt. That means he won't lie to our people. That's what they're saying. But anyways, so very important. And I think if you haven't read the article, if you could go to bjdichter.com or search my name in Zero Hedge. The Daily Bell's another one, the National Telegraph. Read the article. I think and read it with the understanding that I'm not trying to affirm confirmation bias. I'm just trying to give, a separate analysis of what's going on. That's all, All right. And don't get angry. If you want to send me nasty emails, there's already a filter on my email. So just kind of with a series of words, it just goes right into in the trash. But if you want to be nice to me, or ask me a legitimate question, then the emails will get through. All right. Not on record, in a similar vein, last Sunday. So this Sunday on Not on Record at 8 o'clock is going to be an episode on AI with Michael and Joseph. But last week, Joseph and myself did a special episode. So I created Not on Record, produce it, and I have a guy who does all my videographer work, and this is kind of part of a broader project that I'm working on. A few years ago is when we launched it, and Joseph, if you don't know, Joseph Newberger, he's a criminal lawyer from Toronto, a quite brilliant criminal lawyer, and I guess he's got what you would call a boutique firm. And I met him through Diana Davidson, who is now a researcher there, and was a well-known men's rights activist around the time that my business was on Ryerson's campus, and I saw all this postmodern extremist creep get into the student body and the faculty. But yeah, Joseph is great. And by the way, just a little comment on this, for everyone, I heard it yesterday from somebody, all lawyers are liars, or all lawyers are garbage, or I hate all lawyers, or I don't trust all lawyers. Well, okay, that's not been my experience, first. And secondly, that is the leftist collectivist worldview. Whenever you say X group of people are whatever you want to attribute to them, that is leftism. If you are a right-wing person and you are saying all X believe this, you are not a right-wing person. You are a left-wing person LARPing as a right-wing person because you're not an individualist. Now, there's something to be said to the fringes on either side, and we'll talk more deeply about that philosophically another time. But if you collectivize a group of people based on whatever attribute you want to choose, you're a lefty. You're a collectivist, and that's why sometimes there are people who are liberals who will agree with conservatives on certain issues from time to time, and it does happen more than people realize. It's because they're not collectivists, they're individualists, and I think that's where we need to go. So much like lawyers, there are good ones and there are bad ones, and Joseph is great. He's got a very strong record of victories, and the name of his law firm, by the way, NR Lawyers, and NR Lawyers is his Twitter account if you want to follow him. And the name of the firm is Newberg & Partners. But anyway, so we discussed on the last episode of Not on Record an episode titled The Divide and Conquer Strategy, Blaming the Jews, which is maybe a little bit provocative. Let me just read it again. It's episode, I want to say 132, if I remember correctly. But the Divide and Conquer Strategy, Blaming the Jews. And basically, it was an opportunity for Joseph and I to talk about some issues culturally, philosophically. I wanted to keep it kind of broad because he, as many people, I'm sure you see, many people around you are in transition and are evolving on a number of cultural and political issues right now. And so it's been very interesting to see his change over time, that he's adopted his views, which is what we need to do. Remember I said before, the problem is we're not talking to one another, especially with people we disagree with. I don't mean the crazy, communist lunatics. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about reasonable people who may have opinions you disagree with. And usually it's because they're lacking some information that you have been privy to. That's usually all it is, because they've been siloed by the legacy media through lies by omission. So you may know certain things about, I don't know, Justin Trudeau, and they've never even heard it. Like, they just never have heard it. Well, that's not their fault. You can't get angry at people for just never hearing, what could be very critical information. There are people who've never heard that we had our bank accounts frozen in Ottawa without being charged with any sort of crime or nothing. Like, there's people who don't know that. And then there's other people who don't believe it. Oh, well, that didn't happen, anyways, but lawyers themselves individually treat lawyers and people as individuals, right? Because and this is with the asterisks that we talk about on this stream, there are three people in society who are the least credible people in society. And I guess, I don't know if Lisa is here watching, but she usually shouts it out right away. And those are politicians, the media, and lawyers, with an asterisk that a lawyer is an officer of the court, and they are hired. Sometimes they're hired to lie for the other side, who might be telling lies to their own counsel, but they deserve the right to counsel. But you know how you have a real dirtbag politician, lawyer, whatever, is when you have somebody who has all three characteristics. When you have somebody who's a politician, is in media, and a lawyer, that's the one person in the world you don't trust. That's the one person you don't trust a syllable that comes out of their mouths. A politician and media and lawyers, no, that is Super Saiyan lying psychopath dirtbag. That's what those three things mean. It's very important. We're going to come back to that later on. But anyways, so we did this introductory episode with Joseph. We may revisit it once a quarter or something like that. We'll see how it goes, just because I'm too busy. And the focus of that podcast is on the legal system and people understanding how the legal system works, so they don't, get themselves into trouble, sort of thing. But it's been very interesting to see his philosophical journey, not just him, but other people in his office, other lawyers that I know as well. And this is not about, and the politicians get angry when I say this is not about party politics, because all the parties are garbage. They're all one uniparty. I'm not saying one shouldn't be a little bit better than the other in the next coming election. That's not what I'm not saying that. I get it. Trudeau's a communist and he needs to go. Well, it's not even him. He doesn't even have any philosophical worldview. It's the people around him, but they need to go. We all understand that. I get that. But it's about, as I see it, the cultural war right now, that's been consistent in every Western culture. And it's now creeping into the third world. I've seen it both in Mexico and in Colombia. And that is Western values versus alien values, which is what we're dealing with. And you're seeing that on the streets here now. We are, when I started, and by the way, alien values being some form of jihadism and, communist collectivism and stuff like that plays off one another. When I started this journey into podcasting, it was because I saw this on the university campus and it was killing my business. It was absolutely destroying it. And I had to get out of it for that reason. And that's why I got involved in politics. That's why I got involved in podcasting. And, that's part of the motivation behind Freedom Convoy, right? Freedom Convoy was about mandates and an end to the data tracking. But don't think I haven't seen for 10 years the changes on the inside in politics and in our culture that has led to that authoritarian extremism. It didn't just start with COVID and masks and what. It didn't start there. It started decades before. Some might argue it started in France in the 1990s when I first learned about this encroaching collectivist extremism. France is, we're well ahead of France, right? And the UK now is suffering the same cultural battle of these collectivists with alien values versus the rest of us who are Western individualists, right? And they're starting to try to erode away at various Christian communities, to starting to collectivize them. And the best way to do that is, who are they going to use? Well, it's the Jews or the Zionists or whatever pejorative or euphemism the dirtbags use, right? It's the same strategy that Hugo Chavez was using when I was in Colombia, when he would blame the gringos, the United States, for all of their grievances. He took all their oil profits, basically lined it in everybody's pockets and nationalized everything. And then the price of oil collapsed and, oh, look, it's the Americans. The Americans have made you poor. They're doing, the Red Green Alliance does the same thing to the West. And now they're trying to bring this into as many churches as possible. And I and some other people, having a background in learning this stuff for many years, already can see the money trail, and enough people have reached out from different parts of the world explaining the money trail. That's what Candace Owens is. I think there's a little bit of psychosis there as well. I was on her show once, interviewed by her. And, I always had this impression that Candace Owens was very articulate and very smart. She speaks quickly. If you notice, it's a tactic they all use. They use people that will speak quickly so they can layer on a bunch of gish gallops before somebody can say, wait, slow down. No, 1 point at a time, right? And but my assessment of her was, you do enough interviews, you get to realize who are the smart ones and who are the dumb ones. And then most people are somewhere in between, right? And you can also see who is scripted and who is ad-libbing and is just giving their opinion. Like, when you do enough interviews, you start to pick it up within the first 5-10 seconds. And with her, my impression was she's just not very bright. it was all, she's reading everything. She knows she has the communication skills to persuade and influence people, but other than that, there's not much there. Really, I mean, and she fits the perfect. I think anybody in human psychology and psychiatry probably would affirm, because know a little bit about this from some other people. She's perfectly suited in the demographic based on age and gender and a whole bunch of stuff, to have a higher propensity to some degree of mental illness, some form of psychosis. There's I wish I had the graph. Well, I'm going to learn how to put graphs on here, and I'll research some stuff. But they showed me the data. Doctors showed me the data that basically there's this kind of parabolic uptrend of women, for some reason, who are high functioning, who are in their late 20s, early 30s, who are very successful, that have a high degree of suppressed emotions, that they are the most susceptible demographic to slide into some form of psychosis. Now, psychosis is a whole umbrella of different mental illnesses, and she fits that perfectly. So it makes perfect sense. And I think that it's just getting exploited by some people with ties to the Red-Green Alliance, which we've talked about in some of the podcasts that I had produced. And we'll talk more about that here moving forward. But I think it's influencers, and I know who they are online, who are tied to elements of the Red-Green Alliance, who are trying to capture people, who are influencers in Twitter and social media and YouTube and all that sort of stuff, to funnel large dollar amounts of crypto to turn them into mouthpieces for extremism. And my guess is that's probably what's happening, And with all this stuff, there's never it's really interesting. People get this false impression. It's not like if you're in the Muslim Brotherhood, there's not a card. There's not like a Muslim Brotherhood card with a QR code that you scan. They say, beep, yep, I'm Muslim Brotherhood. No, that's not how it works. Although one can say, I mean, there are other indicators, but anyways, that's off topic. But it's basically pattern of behavior and associations, and then follow the money trail. And it's kind of, as it was explained to me, how many data points do you need until things start drawing a straight line? And that's how you can identify that people are part of certain, maybe foreign nefarious entities that do not have the best interest of the West, the United Kingdom, Canada, the US. They don't have the best interests of those countries at heart, and many other countries, by the way. And so that's basically how it works. And I think that's what we're seeing online. So, bjdichter.substack.com. Check it out, or on Zero Hedge. And I may expand more upon that, but the next article's on a different topic, actually. All right, X, formerly known as Twitter, is banned in Brazil. Oh, and by the way, before people always give me a hard time about this. Before people yell at me for spelling Brazil with an S, when I learned Spanish and I lived down there, I learned that in Spanish and in Portuguese, it's Brasil with an S, not a Z. Z is the Anglified version of Brazil, and I just don't like it. I just don't like it. I'm just never going to use it. So, Brasil with an S has banned Twitter and X, and it seems to be Elon is on this mission to destroy, I guess this guy's a henchman for Lula, but to destroy this Supreme Court judge named Alejandro de Moraes. I think in Portuguese it's pronounced Moraes. If anybody's Portuguese, it's Moraes. Kind of like como estás versus como estás. I think that's what it is. But anyways, Moraes, whatever it is. The guy looks like Lex Luthor or Hitler without any hair. Basically, he needs a mustache, and he behaves that way. He really is really quite crazy. But anyways, what's interesting is everybody knows amongst the educated class that's nonpartisan in Brazil, everyone knows that Bolsonaro won the election. That's why they had such an uprising. They knew that, this leftist who was in jail was not the preferred candidate. But if you think American elections are problematic, you got to go to Latin America and see what goes on there. It's so crazy. It's so crazy what people do there. It's anyways, that's another issue. So there are investigations that happen into judges, not just in Latin America, but all over the world, in the Western world as well. I know of some investigations into judges that were eventually charged in Canada. But there's different rules. I can't explain to you how different Latin America is. But anyways, what Moraes has put on people through, I guess, a Supreme Court ruling, I guess. I don't know how this is, but again, different legal system, that if anybody is caught using a VPN for Twitter, so they're using VPN to block their Twitter use, they're subject to a $9,000 fine. I think it's US dollars. It didn't really specify, but I assume the coverage from the US is referring to $9,000. They're just converting it out of, what are these pesos in Brazil? But anyways, I guess people who haven't traveled to Latin America don't understand how significant that is. $9,000 in many Latin American countries. That's like I want to say purchasing power, because the macro guys will get angry at me. But that would be like finding somebody $90,000 in Canada. $9,000 goes a lot farther in Latin American countries. Like a 3-bedroom at the time, years ago, but it's still nowhere near. I think, the equivalent of a $2,500 apartment, like a penthouse apartment, or would be something that would be like $4,000 or $5,000 a month here, is like $500-$600 in many developed cities in Latin America. It's just a different economy, right? But I think it's going to lead to possibly a rise. It's definitely increasing friction, as you see from the protests, who I think predominantly might have been Bolsonaro supporters. But I'm doing this to ask a question of the political left, knowing I'm not a big proponent of right-wing, left-wing dynamics. I'm more individualist versus collectivist, but we'll get to that over time. What happened to the left? What happened? Like, the left they're supposed to all about be tolerance and inclusion. And, when I learned about, liberalism as a kid in school, it was about freedom of association, freedom of speech, freedom to have sex with whoever you wanted. That's what the left was supposed to be. What happened? Where are those people? Oh, are they on the conservative side of things now? I guess that's why a question I often ask is, why are all the conservative leaders, why did they all come from the left? Have you noticed that? You can go down the whole list of people. All of them are from the left, but they are kind of the premier spokespeople for conservatism in the modern world. How does that happen? Weren't there other conservatives there for decades who could speak on issues? What happened? Oh, just kind of interesting. But anyways, my loaded question is, what's happened to the left? Is it just the progressivism? Is it the fact that they've been, wedged together, liberals and progressives, and the extremists always are the ones who take over? Or is it just like what David Horowitz always, his quote, but I think he puts it on the inside. He puts a quote on the inside of every issue of Front Page magazine, where he says, "Inside many liberals is a totalitarian screaming to get out." And he further explains it that they don't like to have another point of view in the room, and they don't want to have another point that they can't quash or squash with a character assassination or name calling. Yeah, that sounds about right. Right? Is that not what we were dealing with in Ottawa? Right? We're all this phobic and that phobic and neo-Nazis. You know, the Jewish neo-Nazis in Ottawa and all the Chabad people and the religious Jews that came out to support the convoy with all the other denominations of various religions who came to Ottawa. They're all neo-Nazis. Is that the way the world works? Again, that's the collectivism. Everybody who doesn't think like me is an extremist. And I'm worried I'm starting to see that on the right side of politics, and they're doing it through the veiled, obsession over Israel or Jews that they've been brainwashed by. And by the way, that comes from the Islamists. It doesn't come from Christians. Modern Christians are not like that. But that comes from the Islamists who are paying Christian mouthpieces to try to brainwash people into buying into this narrative. I'm going to talk more about that in the future. That's why we need to criticize and engage or critique people on our own side and ask questions, because that's the hedge against it. If we don't ask questions, we're going to slide into a very dark place. And as you know, I like to focus on positivity, and I like to work to make the world more positive. And one of the tools of making the world more positive is being able to openly critique people who we agree with, just to make sure we're not making any sort of mistakes and we're not fueling some sort of isolated extremism that would result from it. So there you go. Jesse says, when I started voting, I was a true lefty. As time passed, I don't see my values change that much, but I do vote right now. We'll vote on the right now, I guess is what you're trying to say. Yeah, no, I agree 100%. The left-right divide, that is not going to be helpful. The only people that helps is political parties. That's it. I used to cringe. Like, I used to listen to Rush Limbaugh all the time when I was in the States. I find him entertaining. I disagree with him a lot, but I found it very entertaining. But what made me cringe all the time is when he says, Democrats think X. No, now you're being a lefty. No, you need to focus on the individuals. You can focus on individuals who have similar specific values on an issue, but even that, you run the risk of getting into this collectivist mindset that is destroying the West, because it allows collectivist cultures to capture us and insert their alien values into our culture, which is what we're seeing right now. But that's just my perspective. Okay, I got to run. I'm sorry this one's a little bit short, but I'm trying to do these as much as possible. Big changes coming in the near future. Probably going to be doing more of this soon. I got an article coming out on Substack soon. The last two were in Zero Hedge. Check them out if you can. I think you'll enjoy them, and give them some feedback, share them, let me know. And please like, share, subscribe. And everybody on Locals, normally I would spend another little bit of time with you. I can't right now because I'm going to be late for an appointment I have this morning. So, Jesse, love you. Love everybody else who's watching now and in the future. Rocky, I send him my love, and I'll work on some AI, I don't know, an AI